Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing, or at least taking you through quite quickly, Penhaligon's Discovery set. I have here 10 fragrances from the portrait collection. You know, they have different, these portraits are all like different made-up characters. There's like Lord George, and he takes a wife, and she's Lady Blanche, and they have a child, and then he takes a mistress, and there's this whole revenge story, and there's the Duke, and then there's Mr. Sam, who's like this cocky American in London, and the fragrances are all kind of based on their character. And then they also have, like, the bottles look like that. So they all have like an animal head. The top is like shaped into an animal head, and I haven't quite figured out what the animals represent. I'm more interested in the juice. I just thought I would give you a little bit of an introduction. This is, I think, a house that's been around for quite some time. Established 1870. So this is an old classic house. And this, the portrait collection, is a very modern take on, like, coming from a classic house. And I think this is good in general, that they're trying to keep up with their times. I can just kind of imagine them in the boardroom, you know, what are we going to do? You know, people aren't going for these old, you know, Lily of the Valley and Lily and Spice and all these things, and we can't bring them back. So what do we do now? And to kind of see what is in demand. And I think a lot of these fragrances, I'll have to say, a lot of them remind me of other things out there. And that doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, I think these fragrances are really high quality, maybe a little more subdued than I would have liked. And I find this about British perfumery. I don't know, please argue against me, but that it's a little bit more low-key than, for example, Italian or American or French perfumery. In general, like Floris is also like very light, Jo Malone, very light, Creed is pretty light. I know if Creed has moved to France now, but so there, I mean, there is something, I think there's some truth in this. There's always that exception. I mean, Electimus is from London, and those fragrances are not exactly apologetic, but anyway. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it, and we'll start with Terrible Teddy. It's like a kind of a masculine, or it's kind of a, I would say like a kind of like a spa-ish kind of fragrance. It's not so perfumey, I don't think. It has ambroxan, leather, and incense. And I get this vibe from incense sometimes, that it's like something that you would experience, like maybe it's because they sometimes, you know, light up incense in yoga studios and things like that. So I get that vibe. But this is like super modern. I know a friend's daughter who really liked Terrible Teddy, and she said it was so expensive she was looking for a replacement. And I think then I recommended her to go to Aesop, which is like a skincare brand, but they also have like 5, 10, maximum 10 fragrances that are all kind of in this kind of ballpark. So if you're into this kind of fragrance, kind of spa-ish kind of fragrances that are not like classic perfumey, that have like an incense quality, maybe go check out Aesop. They're not for free either, but they have them in smaller bottles, I think, and they're definitely cheaper than the portrait collection. So there's nothing real terrible about Terrible Teddy. It's just not my cup of tea. I could wear it, but I probably wouldn't, since there's so many other things to wear out there. And then we have the Coveted Duchess Rose. I just recently reviewed that in this collection that I did in my previous Penhaligon's video. It's a powdery, musky rose with a little bit of citrus. I think it's mandarin orange. And I find that combo super typical for this box, and kind of for their overall profile. Like the rose, this is like a very classic profile, kind of like Coco Mademoiselle. Intense I used to have myself, so that's really the only one that I know, but that is like Impressa is very similar to that. That's in this box. It's not really my cup of tea. I think that it goes in that direction, like it's rose, kind of a little bit more old lady like rose, and I prefer like a dark masculine kind of fresh rose, and not like dried rose petals. When the rose gets like really constant, I think they've overdosed the rose in the Coveted Duchess Rose. But it has 4.15 is the grade on Fragrantica, so that's quite high. I think it's pretty popular. Anyway, then there's the Revenge of Lady Blanche. It is the only like iris kind of fragrance in the collection. I think the dominant note is hyacinth, and it also has narcissus. And a lot of people on Fragrantica says it reminds them of Chanel No. 19, and I agree. It is the same kind of aldehydic, soapy type of fragrance. I'm not so fond of number 19. I do love the flanker though. Number 19, Poudré. I have that in another video. I think my Iris video, if you're interested in that fragrance, that's a beautiful fragrance. I just love it so much. This one I don't think has anything new to offer. It doesn't have anything to offer me. I think it's too aldehydic. It's too old-fashioned. Not my favorite fragrance. And then we have the Blazing Mr.Sam. This is the American loud guy in London. This is a beautiful men's fragrance. It's marketed to men. So some of these are marketed to men and some to women, actually, but they're all kind of, they all have a kind of a, what do you call, uniform kind of profile. I've underlined cardamom, tobacco, vanilla as the main notes, but it also has like saffron, cumin, black pepper, cinnamon, cedar, and patchouli. So it's kind of a, I mean, as you can hear, it sounds like a pretty unisex fragrance, except for maybe the tobacco. But I find it quite masculine. And I think the color of the fragrance, it's the blue one right there, does not represent the smell at all, because when I see a blue fragrance, I think it's going to be sporty and fresh. Like it'll be like a, that's just what my association. I could be wrong about that, but I would think that this is more of a, maybe should have been more of a brown fragrance perhaps, or something a little more neutral. But I would love to smell this on a man. The Blazing Mr.Sam. Yeah, I recommend it. I don't think I would get a bottle for myself though. And then there's Heartless Helen. Heartless Helen is the turquoise one. I haven't worn much of that, as you can see, because I find it quite heartless. I tried it a few years ago and I hated it back then. And although I'm into Tuberoza again, Tuberoza has grown back on me. After I almost got choked out by Rouge Malachite from Armani Privé, I was like off Tuberoza for like over a year, but now it's like it's slowly coming back. And I now own a travel size of Carnal Flower. And then I have a decant of Tuberoza from Nishane, and I'm kind of getting back into it. And there's one called Moon Bloom from Hiram Green that I really like. And I think when summer comes, I'll be way back into it. I do like Tuberoza, but this Heartless Helen is just, it's a sharp, especially the opening is super challenging. There's something disturbing about the smell. I'm just going to spray this now just to kind of remember what it said. I was kind of trying these last week, and I'm not going to give this a proper wearing because I just don't like it. It's just, there's a sharp, really, let's see what else it has in there. What could it be? Mandarin orange and woody notes. There's nothing weird in there. It's the Tuberoza. It's too heady. There's no creaminess at all in here. It's just a big, sharp kind of point. Do not like at all. Do not recommend. Okay, so Changing Constance is my favorite one in the collection. Let's see, Changing Constance, I think is the brown one in here. I think it's this one. I've worn a fair amount of it. I think it is the best one in the box. It is a beautiful gourmand, and I think with gourmands, I like them not to be too loud, and that's why I like this one so much. Though it is not so unique, it reminds me a lot of Minuit Demi from Fragrance du Bois. It reminds me a little bit of Starlight from Xerjoff, Magenta Tanzanite from Armani Privé, Remember Me from Jovoy. They're all kind of in that cardamom kind of ballpark. And this one has like caramel, salt, vanilla, cashmeron, and tobacco. I don't get any tobacco from it, thank God. I don't love tobacco, and especially not combined with vanilla. It becomes too cloyingly sweet. It's like sweet on sweet. I don't like that combination so much, tobacco and vanilla. Especially not if the tobacco is dominant, but it is not in this one. And I think maybe the salt and the pimento make it like, gives it a little edge, this one. I can't pick up the pimento. I would never have guessed that was in there. It's just a really nice, and the opening is fantastic. This is a really good fragrance. I think if I would get like a soft gourmand like this one is better than all the ones that I said that it smells like. This is the one that I would prefer. So Changing Constance for sure is a really nice fragrance, and it does have 4.30 is like the average grade out of 5 on Fragrantica, which is really high. So it's not just me. And then there's the Tragedy of Lord George, which I find like it's kind of like a classic and modern fragrance at the same time. Leans masculine to my nose, but I have a friend, she has it. It's kind of like woody, it's boozy, it's a little bit spicy, it has amber and tonka in the base. It's a really, really nice fragrance. But I guess I'm just not that into booze. Like, I'm still kind of getting used to Angel's Share and was thinking, you know, maybe I need something like that in my collection. But then I go again, I try it, I'm like, nah, I don't know, you know? There's always something that I feel like wearing more. I mean, I wear Jazz Club, but Jazz Club is like, for me, it's like a sandalwood fragrance that has a little bit of a coconut feeling, and it has a little bit of spiciness. To me, it's not so boozy. Maybe I like booze when there's just a hint of it. Maybe. I don't know. But the Tragedy of Lord George, really nice fragrance. Do recommend it. I think that it's more a masculine fragrance. That is the green one in there. And then we've got the Inimitable William Penhaligon. I would have thought he was the main character, but I think that the main character in this collection is Lord George. It all kind of started with him. He takes a wife, they have a child, and the child is a portrait. He takes a mistress, the mistress is a portrait, etc. This is a really nice sandalwood fragrance, and I'm getting more into sandalwood, so this really interests me. It's marketed towards men. But it doesn't have like, it does have like masculine notes like vetiver, a hint of incense. I don't mean that incense has to be masculine, but in this combo, I find it quite masculine. And it doesn't have any of like the creaminess of like, for example, Meander from Amouage or like Lost Alice from Masque Milano. It's a more of a clean kind of, not so milky kind of fragrance. But where the sandalwood, you can really tell, and it has jasmine and bergamot in the top. It's really nice fragrance. I definitely want to wear more of this. This is green. Looks like this. I just want to check if that was the right one. I want to spray it just to kind of remind myself. Yeah. And I'm also opening up to vetiver more, and I like it with the sandalwood a lot. This is really good. I'm going to hold on to this. I love trying a whole house like this. I think it's really interesting to kind of see, you know, their profile, their DNA, and what they're trying to offer in a wider sense. Okay, and then we have one that I think is spoken about maybe the most, or at least in my channels, but maybe it's because I'm a woman. The Bewitching Yasmine, which I really don't find as a female fragrance, but it has a female name. It's that red one there. I've worn the most of that. It is more of an oriental style fragrance. It's not a jasmine fragrance. It does contain the note of jasmine sambac, but it is not dominant at all. This is like a vanilla oud incense kind of fragrance, like an oriental leaning, like Istanbul from Gallivant, or oud bouquet from Lancôme, but not at all as sweet as that. So it's not like a oud satin mood kind of fragrance, because there's no rose in there, I don't think. Let's see, no rose. It has cardamom and coffee in the top. So these are quite unisex notes, and I think definitely men can look into this. I think it's really nice. But here kind of the problem is like, why would I choose this one? There's so many fragrances out there in this category, and I think people do compare it to their own Babylon. This one is not quite as sweet. This one has a little bit more of that masculine quality that comes, I think, from cypriol oil, also known as Nagarmotha. And this one, I like this one too. I like them both, and I have other fragrances that are in this kind of same kind of ballpark. But I don't know. I don't think I would get it because I don't find it unique enough. But I do really like it. There's a little bit of a Band-Aid quality to that oud, I think. I get that from oud from Maison Francis Kurkdjian too. The one that's only called oud. It smells super much like Band-Aids, but it's really, really good. Sometimes I can also get a whiff of like, it smells like a dentist's office of that one. Someone said that one time, and after that I couldn't get that association out of my nose. It smelled just like that. So I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, this is much smokier than Oud Bouquet. I have to look at my notes because there were just so many to try, and I've kind of been trying them over the past 10 days. Okay, so then we have the last one is, did I take them all? Yes, I did. Is Much Ado About the Duke. It is the purple one right there. And this is kind of like a classic gin and tonic fragrance with some leather. It's just not my cup of tea, but I think it would be really nice on a man. Maybe. Not sure. I don't like gin and tonic. I don't like to drink it. I don't like to smell it. So it's just not my thing. But this juniper berry can sometimes work. I don't know. I don't think I've tried all the gin fragrances out there, but it's just something I don't gravitate towards very much, and I don't, there's just so many other things to wear. Or maybe I'm just not there yet. I don't know. Okay, so that was the portraits. I don't know if I mentioned that I had, I don't think I mentioned it. I had a decant of the Ruthless Countess Dorothea also in this collection, which I found actually really unique. It had kind of an ambery vanillic base, but it also had like a note of white wine and something else in there that was quite unusual. And I think they discontinued that one, and I don't know why, because that was like, but I did get a little bit tired of that one. Like when I poured like 4 milliliters, I think I ended up giving the rest to somebody to try. And I found like, okay, I know this fragrance now. It just didn't intrigue me anymore. But I found it like nothing else smelled like that. It was like a new experience. And with these, I don't find that any of them really are a completely new experience. Changing Constance, my favorite for sure. After that, I would probably go for the Inimitable William Penhaligon because of the sandalwood, and I'm kind of in a sandalwood phase. And then after that, I would probably maybe go for the Blazing Mr.Sam, although it does lean masculine, but I really like it. So I think those were my, I mean, I really like the Bewitching Yasmine as well. It's just that I have other things that are kind of like that. I don't need it. Yeah, those are my thoughts on this house. Do you have a favorite from this house? Do you think they're price worthy? I mean, 75 mil. They've gone down from like the older ones were 100, now they're 75, which I think is a step in the right direction, and they retail for like over $200. They're pretty expensive. So I don't know if I think they're worth the price. There are other things out there that I think are maybe slightly more better value for money. All right,